I like question one. You know what? I like every question on this quiz. Okay. I came in on the weekend. Your tests are made up, so I'll give you some hints about the tests as we get closer as well. Looks like A wants me to find how high the cliff is, so I'm going to write D equals question mark. I know that A equals negative 9.8. It says dropped, so what's VI? 0. And T is 18.5, so I can use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, although really I didn't need to write the VIT. I could have skipped that. Now it's going to be D equals 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 18.5 squared. And when I crunch this, 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 18.5 squared. Do y'all get negative 1,677 negative 1,680 is what I'll go to 3 sig figs, but I would take negative 1,677. Is that correct? Yeah. Why negative? I got to be fussy. It's not that it dropped. It's that it ended up below from where I started from. It's a displacement, so we always got to think about position. Dropped, you're talking about velocity. Position, it ended up below from where I started from, because it could still be negative if it went up. If it still ended up below from where I started from, if I threw it up and then it went past me and hit the ground, I would still get a negative displacement, right? Is that a preview of coming attractions? Probably. What's the impact velocity of the cannonball? What is the answer not? What is the answer not?
0.
It's not 0. Do a belly flop onto the cement. I assure you, when you hit the ground, it hurts. So I'm going to go, oh, by the way, for my marking scheme, I would give you 1 mark for that, half mark for the number, half mark for the answer. They want me to find V final. Well, I would use VF equals VI plus AT, because they gave me VI and A and T, although VI was 0, so I could have just written VF equals AT. It's going to be negative 9.8 times 18.5. I'm definitely going to get a negative velocity, which I should, because it's definitely traveling downwards when it hits the ground. Negative 9.8 times 18.5. Do you get negative 181.3? So I'll go to negative 181 meters per second. Again, if you have the missing units or forget units, I always take a half mark off and I give you a Verizon application. Otherwise, 1 mark, half mark, half mark. Usually it's half mark for the original equation and then half mark for rewriting it, but in both of these first 2 cases, the original equation already has the thing by itself, so you would get 1 whole mark just for finding the original equation. Again, do you have to show all those steps? I'm, Sean, not going to freak out if you don't, but the risk you're taking is if you make a calculator mistake, I'm giving you 0. So on a test, I would show work.
I was encouraged by you to try it on my head.
Yep. And the homework.
Yeah.
You've never heard me say that about quizzes and tests. So don't blame that on me. It looks like C is also wanting me to find a VF, except the big difference here is T equals 3.4. I can still go VF equals VI plus AT. I guess technically I should put the vectors in to remind myself direction's going to matter. Why didn't I write the VI? 0. And so it's going to be negative 9.8 times 3.4. I can even make another prediction. The magnitude is going to be smaller than negative 181 because it hasn't traveled for as long. Negative 9.8 times 3.4. Negative 33.3. But negative 33.3. Of the big 5, VI, VF, T, A, and D, which one is never negative? Which one is not allowed to be negative because it's a scalar? Time, that's handy to have in your back pocket, in that if you're ever solving for time and you get a negative, don't panic, but you've made a mistake. Go back, check your signs, and check your typing on your calculator. How far has the ball fallen after 6 seconds? So this looks like it's wanting me to find a D where T equals 6. So I think I can use d equals 0.5 at squared. Again, Jared, I didn't bother writing the VIT because dropped VI is 0. So it's going to be 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 6 squared. 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 6x squared button. Do you get negative 176.4? Negative 176 meters. What's the significance of the negative here? It's below from where I started. What's the significance of the negative in part C? What does that tell me? What does that negative in part C mean? Going down. It could, see, that negative in part C doesn't tell me anything about position. It's possible it could be above me and still coming down. It's possible. And that's why when you said dropped or going down, I said, actually, no. There's a difference between position and velocity direction. Okay. Again, for both of these, I would give you 1 mark for that because the VF is already by itself. Half mark, half mark. 1 mark for that. Half mark, half mark. But if you got the right answer, 2 out of 2. Okay, now it wants me to find a time. VI equals 56. A is negative 9.8. That's only 2 things. I need 3 things to find the 4th. What else can I reason my way to, even though the question didn't say it specifically? What else do I know? At the top, for a split second, VF equals 0. The equation I'm going to use would be VF equals VI plus AT, and I would give you a half mark if you wrote that. But now, this, Sean, I would be okay with. I would be okay on the test with you going straight to VF minus VI over A. And so I'll give you 1 whole mark for that. I would give you a half mark if I saw VF equals VI plus AT, but you rewrote the equation wrong. 0 minus 56 all over negative 9.8. 0 minus 56 all over negative 9.8. I wrote that wrong. I didn't hit minus. I hit my negative button. That's what I wanted. Do you get 5.71 seconds? Again, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. By the way, what that really means, Matt, is if you do everything right but make a calculator mistake, you can get the wrong answer, and I'll still give you 1.5 out of 2. You could get 75% on the test getting every question wrong, because I really care more about the process than I do about the actual answer part. Okay? What's the maximum height? Now they want me to find a D. I could use this. D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, and I would give you full marks for doing so if you got the right answer. Why is that a little bit risky? Yeah, but you know what? That'd be a good way to check my answer. I'm going to use D equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2A. I would give you 1 mark if I saw that. If you did that wrong, but I saw VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD, I'd give you the 0.5. You understand how I'm marking? So I'll keep repeating myself, but when in doubt, that's how I mark. By the way, that also means I think every one of you is capable of at least finding the correct equation. Would it be wise to ever leave a question blank on this test? No. I mean, you're throwing away, I think, marks. Make your list, serenity, find the correct equation from your green sheet. That alone, I think everyone is at the stage now where they can pick the right equation from those 4. Oh, then try rewriting it. That's an extra half mark if you can do that right. Anyways, it's going to be 0 squared minus 56 squared. This is going to go pretty high because 56 meters per second is pretty far. I have to be able to enter this into my calculator. I've noticed a lot of you are getting sloppy now. Is this a fraction, Jared? Is this a fraction, Jared? Yeah. Yes, it is. Is there more than one thing on the top? Yeah. So, around the top. Is there more than one thing on the bottom? Yeah. So, around the bottom. So, I don't use brackets to show times in. Too many brackets to track. I would type this as bracket 0 squared minus 56 squared. You could probably get away without putting the 0 squared there, but I'll put it in there anyways for symmetry. Divided by bracket 2 times negative 9.8. Oh, wow, that's a fluke. Is it 160 even? Yeah. Don't count on test questions working out evenly. I typically just make up numbers at random. That's a total fluke. In other words, if you get a yucky decimal, you're probably, don't let that somehow make you think, oh, I did this wrong. I don't care about you enough to make these work out nice. I really don't. 160 meters. And if you tried d equals VIT plus a half AT squared, I wouldn't use 5. The problem is if you use 5.71, so if you go 56 times 5.71 plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 5.71 squared, you don't get exactly 160 because that 5.71 is rounded off. So just be aware of that if you're checking your answer. But you should be, you'll notice, really, really, really close. I mean, that's, 160. What's the impact velocity of the ball just before it hits the ground? Ooh. Hayden, how many marks is part C worth? Read carefully. How many marks is part C worth? How many marks is part B worth? Part A. Part D. Why is part C worth 1 mark? That is my hint to you that you already know the answer, that you don't need to do any calculating. So, what's the impact velocity just before it hits the ground? Negative 56 meters per second. So that's not good physics. That's smart test writing. That's a bit of a hint that you'll pick up, okay? If I ever give you a 1-mark question, it usually means you can get there right away. Now, there is one lie to that. I put one really nasty question on your test, and in terms of the amount of effort, it should be worth 4 marks, but because it's nasty, I only made it worth 1 because if you got it wrong, I didn't want it to really hammer your mark. And I think I made a little note next to that, or I'll tell you when I pass the test out which one that is. So you can't quite always take that to the bank. Once in a while, I'll give you a really nasty 1-marker and only make it worth 1 mark because I don't want it to affect your grade too much. But I do want to challenge you. How long is the ball in the air for? Isn't the answer 5.71? Okay, so you can either go 5.71 times 2, which 11.4 seconds, or, wow, that's terrible, or you could go t equals negative 56 minus 56 all over negative 9.8, and that would give it to you dead accurate. Negative 56 minus 56 divided by negative 9.8. It isn't actually 11.42, it's 11.43 if you round it to 4 sig figs, but I'll give you full credit for 11.42. Hayden, how many marks is part E worth? So that probably means you can do this in your head. What is the displacement of the ball once it hits the ground? 0. So where did it start? On the ground. Where did it end up? On the ground. What's its change in position? Nothing. What's nothing as a number? 0. Turn the page. What's VI not 14? Why is VI not 14? Yeah. How do you know? Okay, and I underlined that. I probably will underline that on your test, but as the year progresses, I'll stop giving you those blatant hints. I'll expect you to pay attention to direction. I think that's fair at this point in our physics careers. If you used a VI of positive 14, I'll give you 1.5, and I'll tell you what you would have gotten using that. But for now, negative 14. T is 22. A is negative 9.8. So I'm going to use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. It's going to be negative 14 times 22 plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 22 squared. And I can type this all in one fell swoop because I've listened to Mr. Dueck and gotten a half-decent calculator. Negative 14 times 22 times 22, Mr. Dueck, plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 22 squared. Do you get negative 2,680? Negative 2679.6? Okay. Now, if you use the VI of positive 14, this will get you 1.5 out of 2. If you have negative 2063.6, I would give you 1.5 out of 2.
So, I just.
Yes, that's what I was predicting and ignoring you for, because I knew where I was going with this, and I know my audience. Okay? I guarantee there's going to be one question somewhere on your test, though, Jimmy, where I throw an object straight down. I'll expect you to clue in, oh, that 14 or whatever number, that's the speed. I have to make it negative to make it the velocity. Negative 2679.6, which is negative 2,680 meters. Again, 1 mark, half mark, half mark. What's the impact velocity of the ball? What is it not? Not 0. And I'm even going to be more specific. It's going to be negative. And I'll even be more specific. It's going to be negative, and the magnitude is going to be bigger than 14, because I'm pretty sure it was speeding up all the way down. So I have some built-in calculator error checks along the way. Julie, if I got a positive answer, I've messed up. If I get an answer whose magnitude is smaller than 14, I've messed up. VF. I would use VF equals VI plus AT. VF is going to be negative 14 plus negative 9.8 times 22. You get negative 229.6. If you missed the negative 14, Jimmy, if you put a positive 14 in there instead, I would give you 1.5 for negative 201.6, negative 202. But is it negative 229.6? No nods? Am I wrong? Oh, okay, so when I ask that, some of you need to nod next time, because if you all just sit here, I can't quite read the feedback. I make mistakes all the time. You're my answer key. All right, that is negative 230 meters per second. Okay? Ball is launched straight up from the edge of a high cliff with an initial velocity. Find the final impact velocity. Careful. What does Mr. Dueck mean by careful? I don't know, but let's be careful. I guess they want me to find VF. VI is positive 34. D is, why is D not 252? Okay, it has nothing to do with it going up. Stop talking about velocity when I'm talking about displacement. Why is D not positive 252? Yeah, you're ending up below from where you started, and D is a displacement, so negative 252. If you missed that, I'll show you what you would have got. A is negative 9.8. I'm going to end up using VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD, except I need to get the VF by itself. Sky, how to get rid of a squared? Yeah, what's it, that thing there, that square root? It's going to make you use math terms. The thingy with the little... by the way, put your pencils down. Hashtag nerd trivia. Do you know where that symbol came from? So we used to, 300 years ago, you would actually write, and that was the square root of 32, and then they started abbreviating it. Jimmy just saw where it came from, and yeah, it comes from that. And then Euler, a mathematician, came along and he said, you know what? We can put different numbers right in there to show you cube root or fourth root. So very nice, elegant notation, but it came from the R from root. Hashtag nerd trivia. Read. Sorry, but I read lots. Okay. Read a few books on math history, and some of it's really interesting.
What do you learn that? Read.
Yeah. Books. So it's going to be the square root of 34 squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 252. Some of you can type this all in one fell swoop? I sort of can, but for complicated square roots, I'd still tend to type what's inside the square root first. And then go square root, answer button. Y'all get 78.1? That's wrong. Why must this be wrong? And this is the careful. Why can't the answer possibly be 78.1? Sam? So? What's the correct answer is what I'm saying. Okay, so the correct answer is negative 78.1. If you miss the negative, I would take a half mark off. And this is that time whenever you're hitting the square root button, I said your calculator always assumes you want the positive square root. Sometimes you're going to want the negative square root. And this time I know it's going down. Now, if you miss the negative on the D, if you put in D as positive, you might get an error. I'm not sure. Yeah, you would get negative 3,783.2. And when you try to square root that, I love it. My calculator actually says non-real answer. I like to think that my calculator is saying, dude, get real. And the reason is I've told my calculator I'm accelerating down, but ended up above from where I started. My calculator is saying that can't be in the real universe. So I got an error. If you just magically said, well, I'll bring that number back. Oh, sorry. And I'll just chuck the negative. I'll go square root of positive 3,783.2. First of all, that's bad physics. Don't do that. If you get a weird answer, the universe is tapping you on the shoulder and trying to get your attention. Don't tell the universe, talk to the hand, and just ignore it. That's dumb. But you would get 61.5. I would give you 1 out of 2 for that. Except negative. Sorry, if you said negative 61.5, I would give you 1.5 out of 2. Questions?
What if we got negative 78.0?
You rounded it off wrong? So I'd give you 1.5 out of 2. And I would say we round off, we don't chop off. What was the correct answer? I got to go back and get my work. By the way, some of you should find out if your calculator, most of your calculators might let you go back several lines, which is really, 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 really handy because it saves you a lot of retyping. Read your manual. Yeah, it's a 7. It's going to be a 1, right? Yeah. How long until it hits the ground? This is also the tricky part because if you go t equals question mark, and you know VI and you know A, you're going to start out with this equation here. And the problem is, how many t's are there in this equation? There's 2. There's a t and a t squared. So right now, unless you're in grade 12, you don't know how to solve this. And even if you're in grade 12, it's a pain. It's the quadratic formula. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use t equals VF minus VI over A, and I have to use my answer from part A. So it's going to look like this, negative 78.1, although I'm going to use my answer button, minus 34 all over negative 9.8. Now, if you got part A wrong, but you dropped that velocity down to here and you wrote it right there, I will give you 2 out of 2 for part B if you did that correctly. Even though you got the wrong answer, your method was totally fine. So, negative answer button, minus 34 divided by negative 9.8. Did you all get 11.4 seconds?
How'd I get 10.4?
I'm ignoring you right now. Hang on. Did you all get 11.4 seconds? Yes? Alex is looking puzzled. Where did I zig, or where did you zig?
How can we go use D?
Because if you're using D and this, then you have to get that T by itself. Sorry? Yeah, then you probably let VI be 0 or something like that, maybe. Yeah, which is not. Okay? 11.4. Is that right, first of all? Okay. If you got 10.4 right now, I'll mark it wrong. Lawyer with me after, and I'll look at your work. Okay? That's a tough question. So you ready for your hint? I think I would be comfortable giving you this same question, but not bothering to ask you part A, simply asking you part B and having you clue in, well, I can't use this. I need to find something. Oh, I need to find VF in order to find time. This is your first exposure to this has to be a two-step question. You can't get there in one step. Okay? Turn the page. Oh, the playground question. Cool. Oh, I remember this. We broke this up into, on the slide, and on the ground. I remember this. And so VI is 0 on the slide. Oh, VF is 0 on the ground because it says stops. Looks like D equals 4. T equals, this is all on the slide. Here's a D of 0.25, 25 centimeters, but I converted it to meters. It wants me to find how fast the child hits the ground. Okay. Oh, that's going to be VF right here. I think I can use, D equals VI plus VF times T over 2. I'm lousier at this equation, so I'm going more meticulously. I think VF is going to be, yeah, I can do this, 2 times D divided by T minus VI is 0. It's going to be that. Now, the other thing you could have done, I guess, maybe, is you could have calculated acceleration from here and then gone VF equals VI plus AT. If you did that, you'll get the same answer, and I'll give you full marks. But for now, it's going to be 2 times 4 divided by 2.5, and I get 3.2 meters per second. Mr. Dueck, should that be negative? If you called it negative, I'll give you full marks. It said how fast. I don't know whether they want the velocity or the speed. The speed magnitude is 3.2, and I got a positive answer based on how I set this up. You could also argue, Chase, that you end up below from where you started, so that D should technically be negative. I would be fine if you said that. But for now, I'm going to say 3.2 meters per second. Now, part B, they want me to find A. I only know 2 things. Or do I? Who remembers the clever move that we did here? Yeah. VI is going to be my VF. It's going to be 3.2. Now, if you got this number wrong, but you moved it over here and you did this next step correctly, I'll give you 2 out of 2 for part B. I'm going to end up then using A equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2D. It's going to be 0 squared minus 3.2 squared all over 2 times 0.25. It's going to be 0 squared minus 3.2 squared divided by 2 times 2.5. Close bracket. Oh, is this person slowing down when they hit the ground? Did I make a typo?
You put
0.25. Thank you. Can be for you, Jimmy, for spotting that. Is that better? Is it negative 20 point something? How many G's is that? If I asked you, did I ask you how many G's of part C? No. If I asked you to convert that into G's, how do you change an acceleration in meters per second squared into G's? Okay. Not G, 1 G, the magnitude is 9.8, so you just divide by 9.8 because that's a magnitude. They're pulling negative 2 G's, which is about right-ish. Anyways, negative 20.5. If you had let V initial be negative, you'd get a positive acceleration here because they are accelerating up. So it all depends whether you want to think about the negative as slowing down Or if you wanted to think about it as accelerating up, you could call this a positive acceleration. And this is why it's all relative. The directions are kind of arbitrary. Just be consistent in your question. Is that okay? Ooh! This is number 19 from the homework, which a number of you have asked me about, but I noticed a whole bunch of people handed in the homework and they had just written an answer next to number 19 and hadn't bothered asking me. So I thought, well, let's teach you to ask questions. If I notice a tough question no one's asked me about, you'll see it in the future. How would I solve this? So a car is traveling at 15 meters per second when the driver sees a child standing in the road. He takes 0.5 seconds to react, then steps on the brakes and slows at 8 meters per second squared. How far does the car go before it stops? Much like the slide, I'm going to draw a line. But I'm going to break this up, Gabe, into coasting and braking. And I'm going to divide, Sky, all those numbers into the appropriate side. I think what I'm going to try and do then is I'm going to find how far the driver travels before they hit the brakes, how far they travel after they hit the brakes, and then what would I do with those two numbers to get the total distance? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to call this DC for coasting, and I'm going to call this DB for braking in my high-tech numbering system. Okay. That 15, I think that's a VI while coasting. And that 0.5, that's a time, and it's before we've hit the brakes, so we're still coasting. This is an acceleration while braking, but we're slowing down, so it's negative. Stops V final is 0. Ooh. Jared, how many things do I know on the left-hand side? How many on the right-hand side? I need 3 before I can find the 4th. Ooh. On the left-hand side, we're coasting. We're not stepping on the brakes. We're not stepping on the gas. What's my acceleration then as a number exactly if I'm not speeding up or slowing down? Ah. Jared, how many things do I now have on the left-hand side? Cool. So I can find D equals VIT plus a half AT. Well, actually, A is 0, so I can cross out that whole thing. It's going to be VIT. I can do that in my head. It's going to be 7.5 meters. On the right, oh, Jared, what was my acceleration here? How fast was I going at the beginning? What was my acceleration? How fast was I going at the beginning? How fast am I going at the end? What was my acceleration? What was my acceleration? And so how fast am I going at the end? 15. Right? Is that okay? Speed hasn't changed. So what's my initial speed when I started to brake? Still, yes. How many things do I now know? 3. I can find the 4th. I can go D equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2A. It's going to be 0 squared minus 15 squared all over 2 times negative 8. And I get 14.0625. So, come on, pen. Wow, great timing. Come on, pen. D total equals 7.5 plus 14.06, which is going to be 21.5. I'll take 21.5. I'll take 21.6. I'll go 21.6 meters. If you got that, 4 out of 4. Otherwise, I would give you, just for cluing in that you needed to draw a line, a half mark for that. I would give you a half mark if I saw that you had realized that. I would give you a half mark if I saw that you had realized that your VI on the right side was 15 because you hadn't hit the brakes yet. So that's 1.5. Then I would give you 1 mark for that. I would give you 1 mark for that. That's 3.5. And I would give you a half mark for cluing in that you had to add them together. So can you give yourself a lovely score out of 36, please? If you need to lawyer with me, now is the time.